There is a kind of silence that is more powerful than the loudest thunder, more enduring than the strongest storm, and more effective than the cleverest argument. This silence is not weakness, nor is it passivity. It is the deliberate restraint of the soul, a posture of waiting that draws down strength from realms unseen. We live in a world addicted to noise, where opinions overflow, where words are spent recklessly, and where impatience rules the human heart. Yet, in the divine economy, silence holds an authority that words cannot achieve. It is in silence that battles are truly won, because silence positions us to hear what others miss, to see what others overlook, and to receive what others strive endlessly to grasp by their own strength. When you choose silence, you refuse to be enslaved by reaction, by fear, or by the pressure to prove yourself. Silence is the canvas where God paints answers, the soil where patience grows, and the furnace where wisdom is refined. And it is in that stillness that promises mature, doors open, and victories are delivered, not by force, not by noise, but by the power of being still. Silence has often been mistaken for weakness, passivity, or even fear, but in truth, it is one of the greatest demonstrations of strength a person can cultivate. When we think of power, we often imagine it as loud, forceful, and commanding. Yet, history and wisdom teach us that the strongest individuals are those who are not driven by the need to always speak, defend, or prove themselves. Silence is a discipline, a chosen restraint that reveals maturity of character and depth of understanding. It is easy to speak, to argue, to fill the air with our opinions, but it takes strength to remain silent when provoked, to hold back words when tempted to lash out, and to listen instead of rushing to be heard. Silence is not the absence of power, it is the evidence that one possesses enough power not to misuse it. In silence, a person gains perspective. Words once released cannot be taken back, and hasty speech often leads to regret. But silence gives room for wisdom to rise before action is taken. It allows us to observe more clearly, discern the motives of others, and perceive the unseen dynamics of a situation. Those who are quick to speak often miss the details, but those who remain silent discover truths that cannot be perceived in noise. Silence sharpens perception, and perception is strength. Silence disarms conflict. When one refuses to respond to provocation with equal noise, the cycle of escalation is broken. Silence communicates that you are not controlled by external chaos or by the emotions of others. This kind of strength is not about winning an argument. It is about mastering yourself. A person who cannot govern their tongue cannot govern their life. Silence proves that the inner world is not at the mercy of the outer world. In this restraint lies a strength that intimidates the reckless and commands respect even from those who misunderstand it. Another dimension of silence as strength is its role in spiritual endurance. Life often confronts us with seasons where answers are delayed, prayers seem unheard, and progress feels hidden. In those moments, silence becomes the language of trust. Rather than filling the air with panic or frustration, silence expresses confidence that what has been promised will unfold in its time. It is strength to wait without complaint, to endure without broadcasting our struggles, and to remain steady when others are restless. Silence in such moments is not resignation, it is faith in action. Ultimately, silence is not about withholding words forever, but about knowing when to speak and when to remain still. It is strength under control, a force that refuses to be wasted. In silence, a person stands firm, unshaken by provocation, unhurried by pressure, and unafraid of being misunderstood. And in that quiet strength, they create space for wisdom, for peace, and for victories that noise can never achieve. The voice of God is seldom heard in the midst of noise, confusion, and endless chatter. Throughout history, divine revelation has often been given in moments of quietness, when the distractions of life are silenced and the heart is still enough to listen. The world teaches us to seek answers in constant activity, to look for direction in external signs, or to lean on the loudest voices of opinion around us. Yet the wisdom of eternity is not revealed in clamor but in silence. When we learn to quiet the restless soul, the inner ear is sharpened to perceive whispers that can redirect the entire course of life. Silence is not simply the absence of sound, it is the intentional creation of space where God's voice can be clearly heard. In silence, one begins to distinguish between the noise of self and the guidance of the Spirit. Our own thoughts, worries, and fears often drown out the subtle direction that God gives. By cultivating silence, we step away from the tyranny of our own emotions and opinions and place ourselves in a posture of listening. In that listening, clarity emerges. What once seemed confusing suddenly becomes simple. Decisions that appeared overwhelming are illuminated with divine perspective. The voice of God is not a roar that overpowers us. It is a gentle nudge, a quiet prompting, a whisper that requires stillness to be recognized. Scripture and experience both testify that silence is the gateway to revelation. Prophets and saints withdrew into quiet places, away from the distractions of the crowd, to hear divine instruction. In the quiet, visions unfolded, wisdom was imparted, and strength was renewed. That pattern is timeless. If we would discipline ourselves to step into moments of silence, we too would discover answers hidden from the busy and the hurried. God speaks, but only those who are willing to stop speaking themselves are able to hear. Silence also reveals the condition of the heart. When all noise is stripped away, we are confronted with what truly resides within. The hidden doubts, the lingering fears, the deep longings, all of these rise to the surface when silence leaves no place to hide. And it is precisely in that vulnerability that God meets us. He does not speak to the masks we wear before others, but to the reality uncovered in silence. His voice heals, corrects, encourages, and directs, but only when we give him room to speak. Therefore, to embrace silence is to choose intimacy with the divine. It is to believe that the most important conversations are not those we have with others, but those we receive in the stillness of our own spirit. In silence, we stop trying to manufacture answers and allow God to plant them within us. And when his voice is heard, it brings a peace that cannot be shaken, a direction that cannot be questioned, and a strength that carries us forward with confidence. The tongue is one of the most powerful instruments given to humanity, capable of creating life or unleashing destruction. Words have the ability to inspire, heal, and build, yet they also possess the capacity to wound, divide, and destroy. This is why guarding the tongue is among the most important disciplines we can cultivate, and silence becomes a safeguard against the dangers of reckless speech. Once words are released, they cannot be recalled, and their consequences ripple beyond our control. A harsh statement can linger in memory for years, while a careless promise can bind us in ways we never intended. Silence, therefore, is not mere passivity, but a form of wisdom that prevents unnecessary damage. When we choose silence, we give ourselves the gift of time to reflect, time to weigh our thoughts, and time to discern whether our words will produce fruit or chaos. Those who rush to speak often regret the effects of their speech, but those who wait discover the strength of words spoken at the right moment. To guard the tongue is not to eliminate speech, but to elevate it, ensuring that when we do speak, our words carry weight, intention, and truth. The snare of reckless speech is not limited to anger or conflict. It also appears in gossip, boasting, flattery, and empty talk. All of these erode integrity and weaken character. Gossip destroys reputations, boasting blinds us to humility, flattery manipulates others, and empty talk wastes opportunities to speak wisdom. In silence, we step away from these traps and refuse to let our mouths become instruments of harm. By holding back speech, we protect not only others, but also ourselves, because every careless word is a seed that will eventually bear fruit for good or for ill. Furthermore, guarding the tongue is a reflection of inner mastery. The inability to control one's words is a sign of deeper unrest within the heart. Silence reveals that a person is not enslaved by emotion or pressured to constantly prove themselves. It shows that they value wisdom over impulsiveness and peace over pride. True strength is seen not in those who can argue endlessly, but in those who can hold their peace until the right moment. A word spoken in season has the power to heal, guide, and transform, while endless words spoken without thought often scatter without purpose. There are times when silence itself speaks louder than any sentence. Refusing to answer provocation can display dignity greater than any rebuttal. Remaining quiet in the face of slander can reveal trust in a higher justice. Choosing silence instead of retaliation demonstrates faith that truth will prevail without our defense. By guarding the tongue, we preserve honor, build character, and keep ourselves from entangling snares that others easily fall into. Silence is not weakness. It is wisdom in action, and it ensures that our words, when spoken, carry the full weight of purpose, power, and truth. Silence is more than the absence of words. It is a strategy, a shield, and a weapon that is often underestimated. Many battles are lost because people rush to speak before they have seen the full picture. Many opportunities are squandered because individuals reveal too much too soon. But those who understand the hidden strategy of silence know that it is a force that positions them ahead of others. Silence allows you to watch while others reveal themselves. It allows you to learn while others expose their ignorance. It allows you to measure a situation with clarity while others are clouded by the noise of their own voices. In silence, you are not passive. You are gathering intelligence, storing strength, and waiting for the precise moment when action will have the greatest impact. One of the most effective aspects of silence is that it creates mystery. When people cannot read your thoughts or predict your responses, they are forced to respect you or approach you with caution. Silence keeps others guessing, and in that uncertainty, you hold an advantage. Words can betray your plans, but silence conceals them until the time is right. Leaders, negotiators, and warriors throughout history have all used silence as a strategy to outmaneuver their adversaries. It is not deceit, it is wisdom in knowing that not everything should be exposed before its time. Silence also sharpens discernment. By remaining quiet, you gain the ability to listen carefully to what others are saying, and even more to what they are not saying. In the gaps, in the hesitations, in the contradictions, truth often hides. If you are always speaking, you will never hear those subtle revelations. But when you practice silence, you can perceive motives, detect weaknesses, and discern the reality beneath appearances. This insight becomes an invisible weapon, equipping you to respond not with impulse but with precision. Another hidden strategy of silence is that it provides time for divine timing. Too often people ruin their own advancement by moving too quickly, speaking too soon, or demanding answers before the appointed hour. Silence teaches the discipline of waiting for the right door, the right season, and the right word. It is a form of trust that believes the right opportunity will reveal itself without forcing it. In that waiting, strength accumulates, and when the moment finally arrives, you are prepared to step into it fully. Finally, silence protects your destiny from sabotage. Not everyone deserves access to your plans, your dreams, or your struggles. Speaking too openly invites interference, jealousy, or premature opposition. Silence guards what is sacred until it is ready to be unveiled. The hidden strategy of silence is therefore not weakness nor avoidance, but wisdom. Wisdom that preserves strength, secures opportunities, and ensures that your victories are achieved without unnecessary loss. Those who master silence move further than those who spend their strength in noise. Patience is not simply waiting, it is waiting with the right posture, and silence is one of the greatest expressions of that posture. Many people equate silence with inactivity, but in truth, silence is a form of preparation. It is the soil where unseen processes take root, where growth happens quietly, and where destiny is shaped without fanfare. When a seed is planted in the ground, it does not demand to be noticed. It rests in silence, hidden from sight, while powerful transformations are taking place beneath the surface. In the same way, the seasons of silence in our lives are not empty. They are seasons where roots are deepening, character is being formed, and strength is being accumulated for what lies ahead. Silence teaches us to value timing. So much of human failure comes from trying to force outcomes before they are ready. Words spoken prematurely lose their impact, opportunities seized before their season lead to frustration and collapse. But silence trains us to wait until the fruit is ripe, until the moment has matured, and until the appointed time arrives. This kind of patience is not laziness. It is active trust that the process unfolding in silence will deliver something far greater than anything we could manufacture in haste. In silence, we are also freed from the pressure to prove ourselves to others. The need to constantly justify, explain, or announce progress is a trap that drains energy and breeds insecurity. Silence allows us to step out of that cycle and let our growth speak for itself in due season. Like a tree that grows quietly until its branches suddenly stretch wide, so too does patience in silence prepare us for a sudden unveiling of strength. When the right time comes, What was once hidden will emerge in undeniable clarity, and those who doubted will see the results of silent preparation. Moreover, silence gives space for wisdom to settle in the soul. The hurried and restless mind is easily clouded, but a quiet heart perceives lessons that are overlooked by those who cannot stop talking or rushing. In silence, we reflect, we examine, and we refine our perspective. That reflection becomes the foundation for decisions that are steady, deliberate, and fruitful. Without silence, we are at the mercy of impulse. With silence, we gain mastery over our choices. Patience and preparation in silence also reveal our trust in God's timing. To be silent is to acknowledge that not everything depends on our words, our explanations, or our efforts. Some victories can only come through waiting. Some doors can only be opened when the season has fully matured. By choosing silence, we align ourselves with this greater rhythm, demonstrating faith that what is meant for us cannot be taken, delayed, or destroyed. In the end, silence prepares us not just to receive what we have hoped for, but to be ready to handle it with strength, wisdom, and humility. Silence is often misunderstood as avoidance, but in reality, it can be one of the greatest demonstrations of faith. When circumstances press in, when answers seem delayed, and when the pressure to speak or act is overwhelming, silence becomes a test that reveals where our trust truly lies. To remain silent in the midst of uncertainty is to declare without words that we believe in a higher plan that is unfolding beyond our understanding. It is easy to speak when everything is clear, but it takes deep faith to be still when confusion surrounds us. Silence is not the absence of faith, it is the evidence of it. In silence, we resist the urge to control outcomes with our own strength. We often believe that if we explain enough, argue enough, or demand enough, we can shape situations to our advantage. But silence refuses to fall into that illusion. It rests in the assurance that God's hand is at work, even when we cannot see it. It is faith in action, acknowledging that the Creator does not require our noise to accomplish His purpose. By choosing silence, we release the burden of control and place it where it belongs, in the hands of the One who governs all things. This kind of silence is not empty or passive. It is filled with trust, saturated with patience, and infused with hope. It reflects a conviction that promises made will be promises kept, even if the fulfillment is not immediate. The silence of faith is a language that heaven understands. It says, "I will not complain, I will not panic, I will not demand answers before their time. I will wait because I know the one I trust is faithful." Such silence speaks louder than any words of doubt or desperation ever could. Silence as a test of faith also purifies motives. It forces us to examine whether we seek results for our own glory or whether we truly desire what aligns with God's will. When words are stripped away, what remains is the raw posture of the heart. Silence makes us confront impatience, pride, and fear, and in doing so, it refines our faith. It stretches us beyond the need for immediate gratification and into the maturity of trusting in eternal timing. There is also great peace in this silence. Rather than exhausting ourselves with endless explanations or complaints, we find rest in surrender. That rest does not mean resignation, it means confidence. Confidence that what is ours will come. Confidence that what is not ours will be withheld for our good. Confidence that we are not forgotten, but carefully guided. Silence becomes the visible evidence of invisible faith, a quiet yet powerful declaration that we choose to believe even when we cannot see. In the end, silence as a test of faith does not leave us empty-handed. It prepares us to receive with gratitude, to endure with resilience, and to walk with assurance. The silence of faith is not weakness, it is strength rooted in the certainty that God is faithful to His promises. Silence is not simply a discipline to avoid error or a shield to protect us from harm. It is also a channel through which the fullness of life flows into our hands. In a world where noise dominates and constant activity is mistaken for progress, silence opens a door to blessings that cannot be earned by effort alone. When we are silent, we are not withdrawing from life. We are positioning ourselves to receive it more abundantly. Silence clears the clutter of unnecessary voices so that we can hear the guidance that leads us to the right path. It removes the distractions that drain our focus so that we can recognize opportunities that would otherwise pass unnoticed. It is not that silence earns us everything. Rather, silence allows us to see that everything we need is already being aligned for us. When we embrace silence, we discover a peace that surpasses understanding. Peace is not found in arguments won or in endless attempts to prove our worth. It is found in the stillness of knowing we are held, guided, and provided for. In that peace, creativity awakens, solutions emerge, and inner strength rises. The greatest breakthroughs are often birthed not in frantic striving, but in quiet reflection, where wisdom is free to surface. Silence becomes the womb where vision takes form, where ideas mature, and where divine direction is imparted. Those who learn to be silent find themselves receiving not only answers, but also the strength to walk them out. Silence also teaches us gratitude. When we cease the noise of complaint and restlessness, we begin to notice the quiet gifts surrounding us: relationships, opportunities, daily provisions, and even the unseen protections we take for granted. Gratitude flows naturally when we slow down enough to see. And with gratitude comes joy, a joy that is not dependent on circumstances, but on the recognition that life itself is a gift. In silence, we stop striving for what we think we lack and begin to embrace the fullness of what has already been given. Furthermore, silence aligns us with divine timing. Many people lose blessings because they are too busy to recognize them or too impatient to wait for them. Silence slows us down so that we can walk in step with the rhythm of eternity. What is meant for us will come at the right moment, and silence ensures that we do not miss it through noise, distraction, or haste. To be silent is to trust that every provision, every opportunity, and every breakthrough is being arranged on our behalf. Silence positions us to receive everything life has to offer, not because we force it, not because we demand it, but because we are still enough to recognize it, humble enough to embrace it, and faithful enough to steward it. The one who learns silence does not live with lack, but with abundance, because silence is the channel through which peace, wisdom, gratitude, and blessing continually flow.